Hi, everyone. My name is Rohit Kundu. I'm the analytics lead at CaseWare, and I thank you for attending this great session with our CaseWare team, where we'll be focusing on our latest innovation to our suite of technologies. This technology that we will be presenting is called CaseWare AnalyticsAI. It's a very powerful solution that we put together to meet the needs of our clients, current and future, to be able to apply data analytics for every engagement. It'll be a very brief session today, maybe approximately 30 minutes, and we'd like to walk you through what this technology and this new innovative way of applying analytics to your engagement can help you during your busy season or help you during your learning curve in terms of understanding how to use new technologies offered by Caseware. We're happy to present the session to you. Now, you might ask yourself, what is analytics AI? Analytics AI brings analytical capability to every engagement. We infused analytics with artificial intelligence based analysis to help improve the insights that you gain from the analysis itself. It allows you to be more efficient, provide higher quality audits, and provide valuable insights from looking at the data in a more proactive manner. Now, the power of analytics AI is it's easy to use analytics. You no longer have to bring in data, massage the data, try to figure out what the data is telling you, try to perform tasks and calculations to figure out what the data is saying. It actually gives you very insightful information by bringing automated testing to a established workflow and automating some of the tedious process like data acquisition and lowering the learning curve so that any auditor could use analytics. You no longer have to be a super user or a data scientist to learn how to use data analytics. We actually do all that for you because we have an army of data scientists at Caseware that help improve these algorithms to provide you the best of breed technologies that you could use in your engagements. Now, performing better audits, as opposed to allowing the auditors to define each of their analytics, and that could also lead to different levels of quality of audits. This is a standard approach where you could then define the risk appetite of your analysis, but it's a standard set of analytics that would be performed on the data by also looking and identifying areas of high risk and allowing the auditors to perform a more thorough audit. And that's what the technology offers today. So how does all of this work together? How does Analytics AI come together itself? You have the engagement where you start off, whether it's at the desktop or if you're using review, compilation, and tax, which is our very innovative new technology that integrates your engagement for compilation and review. And we could go as far as filing your federal and provincial tax returns, your T2. We could start your engagement there, again, whether it's in the cloud or desktop. You would bring in your entire set of data. When we talk about data, we're talking about your general ledgers. So you would take your general ledger and you would bring it into Analytics AI. You could also bring in your trial balance to get some correlation. We'll take a look at that in a minute. And then you would designate influencers. Is a very innovative way of looking at your understanding of the entity. If you know that sales tends to, potentially put their personal expenses through credit cards, you could actually flag the sales rep's credit card to then look at specific transactions later on. But any transaction that goes through the sales credit card account will be flagged at a higher risk for during the risk calculation. And then from there, we will automatically apply multiple sets of analytics against the whole set of data. And then we allow you to filter the current period or the entire set of data, but we automatically run those tests for you. And the power of using analytics AI is, as opposed to using your computer's PC's resources to be able to run the analysis like you would do with traditional analytic technologies, analytics AI has done everything in the cloud. So we bring in your data, we perform all the analysis, and while that's happening, you could continue on working on your engagement. And We'll take a look at a couple of examples of that in today's presentation. Once the information has been reviewed and presented to you, you have the ability to quickly review and investigate the riskiest transactions, the ones that scored the highest risk score that identify different triggers of the various different tests that's available within the platform itself. And then from the insights that you gain, you're able to quickly generate the reports and then bring that back into engagement. And all of that is done seamlessly within the Caseware ecosystem and platform. So some of the key capabilities, data mapping and workflow optimization. So once you bring in the data, whether it's if it's coming from an online package, we understand the data mapping automatically. If you're bringing in a CSV document, you would go through the workflow of identifying the fields initially, and then you're able to save the template so you could reuse that going forward. And then when talking to auditors, one of the challenges that we understood was also reconciling the trial balance to the general ledger to make sure that information is transferred accurately between the ledger that makes up the trial balance. So we'll definitely complete and validate the completeness of that information. We automatically do the risk-based transactional analysis against the data to identify risk, anomalies, fraud, or errors in the data itself. And it's all based on using artificial intelligence as opposed to just trying to identify data and issues by putting filters and equations. We're using artificial intelligence to look for similar trends that you would manually do. All of these are pre-built into the technology itself, and as opposed to you trying to identify and telling it what to do, it automatically does it for you and tells you and recommends the areas of interest you need to take a look at. And all the charts that's included with the information gives you very powerful insights of what's going on. And as I mentioned, you could then take the information and then report on it shortly after. Now, the data mapping model is very straightforward. Either we tailor it to the size and complexity of your needs, but we have the ability to support files from working papers, from Microsoft Excel, as well as over 50 plus desktop accounting packages. For online packages, we import the data and do the mapping automatically, such as Xero and QuickBooks Online. And we also give you the ability to tag the information right from the destination to the platform itself. Now, how does that all work together? We are similar to what you have experienced with Caseware Technologies. We always put in a optimizer to best guide the experience on how to analyze the information. We also have built-in query system. If you have tuned in to our PBC update, you'll know that this is a very widely used technology today, especially the current times. We're able to now navigate to a more digital platform for your prepared by client requests. We incorporate that capability also into the Analytics AI app, where you could go ahead and delegate of the information that you need to your client. They could respond back directly in the app itself, and you could drag and drop the response directly into your engagement. If you like to see the results, you're able to do that. So they could quickly upload the trial balance, the transactional data, without even having to visit them or send them a email or give them a call. You're able to actually do it directly from within the app itself and then get the information. And then once they upload the trial balance data, you could then use our different import capabilities. As I mentioned, we could take information from working papers, the desktop accounting packages. We could take information from Excel or CSV. You could also take information from the various online packages. Right now we have QuickBooks and Xero available, and we'll be adding more in the near future. Now, once we do that, you then have the ability to reconcile the information to calculate and review the completeness of your information. Does the trial balance reconcile with the general ledger? You're able to do that very quickly within the app itself. And then from there, as I mentioned, you have the ability to select what we call influencers, or essentially your knowledge of the entity. And then as opposed to only applying risk-based analysis at the transaction level, you could also do it at the account level. The example that I had provided is, sales using the transactions for personal use. You're able to flag that credit card account and then look at all the transactions at an elevated risk level. Now, once you do that, then you're able to quickly go in and take a look at these insights in terms of the data and what is it telling you. We could see over here we processed about you know 1,000 transactions, and we've identified high risk, medium risk, low risk. We have various different trigger points for the different tests that's triggering the analysis. We have Benford's law, missing descriptions, rounded amounts, unusual users in terms of the transactions, and you could drill down and look at the information. And everything that we do here at Caseware it's not black box. Everything that we have available, it's a glass door. You're able to see exactly how things were calculated, why the test was enabled, what score parameters were used, and then you have the ability to save that information so you could use that going forward. It's very straightforward. Now, over here, you would see that we've identified the different areas of the risk that we need to analyze and review, right? Now, if I go and take a look at what made up that calculation, I understand why they were triggered, and then I could go and take a look at those particular transactions. In this case, you could see that this specific general ledger has a risk of 148, and you could see it triggered because it's the same user that entered and approved the transaction. It's a rounded amount and high value, and that's why it got triggered. So it's maybe of an area of interest that we need to take a look at. Everything that we do as well is allows you to maintain the evidence. We could go ahead and download the configuration report to say exactly what tests were triggered, how many were found, what were the risk criterias, what was the risk rating that we applied. You're able to download that information. You could just download the results. If you go and say, I want to filter for duplicates, and you find duplicates, you could just say, I want to filter that information and download that and put that into your working papers. Or you could use and download all the data so that you could then store that somewhere else or use it for different purposes. And this is an example of the report itself where we tell you the total number of transactions found and how we used it and what was triggered. All of that is provided to you. So why don't we actually take the time to show you exactly how that would work in context of when you're in working papers. Now, to be able to do this, I highly recommend you upgrade to the latest version of working papers, which is currently at working papers 2019. And if you haven't done so yet, I would talk to your account manager or client services to be able to subscribe to CaseWare Cloud. Now, when you click on CaseWare Cloud and you have your working papers integrated with CaseWare Cloud, you now have the ability to do many new things. You'll see there's a new tab available called Cloud. And if we click on Entity, this is the entity where we'll be performing our engagement. And you can see that all the information is ported over, my main contact points, and this is how you would interact with them with your Prepared by Client app or the queries capability within the platform itself in Analytics AI, the discussions you're having with the client, any tasks you have open, any files you backed up, any type of engagement you have. If you're using the latest version of Working Papers and you're using Smart Sync, you could actually maintain a copy of the sync parent file directly in the cloud as opposed to hosting it on VPN and on your current servers. You could definitely leverage Caseware Cloud to store your Caseware engagement files. But I'm in an engagement right now. Let's go ahead and create a new engagement for Analytics AI. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do one. And we're going to call this Acme Audit 2017 R2. We're not going to carry forward, so we'll leave it as is. We'll start today. I plan on finishing this by the end of the week. We'll allocate about 5 hours, roughly $1,000. And I'm the one preparing this. And the person reviewing it is Alain. And you'll see why in a minute why we annotate who's the preparer and reviewer. If you want to put in some description, you can. If you want to limit the access, let's say it has sensitive information, you could do that here. But for now, we'll just leave it as is. Now the app has opened, and now from here, we have to define, what's the operating name, what's the financial year period. For this one here, we will set it to December 31st. That's the time period that we have the transactions. Now, if you take a look here, you could see there's different workflows. You could go ahead and say, oh, we're doing the risk analysis and the pre-audit step. It's in progress. We're waiting on questions or comments from the clients. Client reply back to queries. You could set the different stages of your analysis. And you could see it's a very simple workflow that we have available. You have your optimizer. If I go to the optimizer, do we want to do a client query? Do you want to see the data validation and data completeness? Do you want to take a look at the analytical review? We'll leave these off for now. We'll come back to that and show you how they operate in just a moment. But let's go ahead and import the data of the client. The client has provided the information to us. We actually took a look at that, and we have the following capabilities of data imports. We have CaseWare working papers, we have the desktop accounting packages, 50 plus supported here. We could bring in Excel and CSV information. If you want the ability to bring in the data directly from online packages, you could definitely do that through QuickBooks and Xero right here. You don't even have to do any data mapping. We understand in the mapping model, and we would bring that in automatically and map for you. But let's use the most commonly route of information provided by clients, which is CSV files. So I went ahead and brought in a trial balance, and we'll say that this represents the account ID. This represents the current year amount, and these are the account names. All right, so we've made our selection, great. Now let's go ahead and import that. You can see they'll be coming through here. You can see the account assignment. We brought that information in. We knew what the mapping was. We were able to bring that in and analyze that information. If there was unmapped accounts, you could just grab and drag and drop it. We would even give you suggestions on what the mapping should be. All right, so we brought in the trial balance, but let's also bring in the general ledger. The client has provided that for us as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we're going to bring in the transactional data. Now this is a comma separated value file, so that's okay. Let's go ahead and bring that in. You can see it's quite quick. It brought in the information for us. It tells us the file name, data layout, when was it uploaded. If I need to replace this, I could delete this and then upload another one. But let's go ahead to the mapping. The mapping is very simple. We're not familiar with this accounting package per se. Let's just say the client provided you a data dump, and you need to go ahead and do the mapping. It's very easy. You would simply just take a look at the fields they provided. You could go and say, you know what, this is the transaction description, which is this information right here, right? Now, you only need to do this mapping once. If you've already done this, or someone in your team has already done this, you can actually see the layouts that they saved here. In this case, it was a 2017 QuickBooks account mapping, as opposed to it was a QuickBooks desktop. So sure, no problem. Let's go ahead and select this layout, and you'll see that it populates everything for you. Now, once we do that, we click on import, and now it's going to go ahead and import that data for us. Let's navigate off the screen. And you can see it just mentioned that transactions has been imported. So if I just go to data, you'll see now I have all the trial balance accounts, but if I want to go ahead and take a look at the transactions itself, I could simply just click on it and it'll now show me the transactions. I have the ability to drill down and take a look at the individual transactions if I want to. If I want to apply filters, I have that ability as well. If I want to put them in, take a look at filters by specific financial grouping, by specific accounts. We have various different filters. Source, we have different filters available for you. If you want to put in additional account information, that's available. So it allows you to really explore the data you're looking at. Now, you might go and say, all right, we brought in the data, but there's something odd going on with the sales and I need someone to take a look at. So I could go ahead and make some annotations and I could link to a source. I could tag my colleagues on comments. If I need to, I can make annotations. So I could say, for review, as I mentioned, you could create issues and you could tag people. So Alain was a reviewer and I want Alain to take a look at the information. So I could go and say, please review and create an issue. And you can see that it's now flagged. If I want to put annotations, I could also do that. Please review. I can make my own annotations in there. You can see the annotations will show up here. Now, if you take a look at what I mentioned in terms of queries, there's no queries sent out yet, but you would see any queries you sent out, any waiting on responses. You could see which sections of the queries have been completed here. Any issues you have will show up here. You have a lot of flexibility in the app itself. Now, one thing I want to mention is, let's say we wanted to go ahead with the queries and we wanted to take a look at the data completeness and the analytical review on that set of data. You can now see the queries module came in, and I could go ahead and send this to the client and give it a date that it's due, assign it to one of my contacts, and I could say, please complete, and they'll get a notification. You'll see it's been sent out. If I click on queries, you'll see that it's awaiting responses and who it's been sent out to. You can see all of that information available there. Now, by selecting the additional information, you now have the ability to take a look at the completeness of data. If we go and say, let's take a look at income statement and see what that looks like. So we could see that it reconciles the trial balance as well as the trial balance and the general ledger to see if there's any differences, and if there is, we need to investigate them. And if there is something that's off, you could again make an annotation, tag someone for a review. So it's a lot more collaborative in terms of analytics. It's analytics to a whole new level. Now, let's go ahead and go back to the documentation. If I go ahead and click on analytical review, I actually have done that already. We could go ahead and see the year over year information. So we could go and see what happened in 2016 in retrospective to 2017. Let's take a look at is the revenue growing? Do we have increasing gross margins, operating expenses? You can see liquidity, profitability. All of these ratios will come through for you. It's a very insightful way of looking at what's going on with the account itself and the client in terms of the information you take a look at. And again, you have the ability to drill down on that data. So if you go ahead and say you want to take a look at the accounts payable, it actually tells you the amounts, gives you ratio calculations, all of that, turnover ratio calculations, all of that is provided for you if you decide to enable it. Now, we talked about, let's go ahead and go back to the basic. So in here, we definitely understand that there's something that we need to apply in terms of influencers. So as I mentioned, if it's a credit card or sales tends to heavily discount products and it's a risk, we actually could elevate that set of transactions flowing through that account and say sales discounts and make that note. Any transactions going through this account will be flagged and elevated by 100% for us to then take a look at it. Now, when we go to risk analysis, and this is where the magic happens, we have the ability now to look at the data, everything led up to this moment, where we now have the ability to drill down on the transactions. You no longer have to apply manual filters and try to understand what analysis you need to perform. We've done everything for you. You just have to consume the reports and insights you gain from this. So you'll see that we've identified high risk, medium risk, low risk by users, by journal types, by period, by transactions. It's all there. So let's go ahead and drill down on high risk. You could go ahead and say, okay, we have high risk transactions. We have 18 of them. And if I take a look, these are the trigger points significantly triggered the scoring. High amounts, rounded amounts, unusual users, Benford's law. We could see the users that it affects, what journals does it affect, what time period does it affect. You could see the risk score and the value amount right here. You're able to look at the transactions. You could go and say, oh, this particular set of general ledger entries had specific keywords. It's the same user entering and approving. It's missing description. There's rounded amounts. There's high amounts. It was triggered by Benford's law. And if I click on rounded amounts, it will highlight the transactions it affected. So you could definitely see there's some really key insights on what's going on. So we had some undeposited funds that got triggered as a key word for us to take a look at and see what's going on here. Now, as I mentioned, everything that we do is a glass box. You don't have to worry about the parameters being hidden. You actually have a complete understanding of what's going on. If we went and said we did a duplicate test and we applied a scoring of 10, we'll actually tell you exactly what's the test that we did, what does it look like in terms of in respective to the total population of the data, how many transactions does it get flagged. You get to see all of that information in front of you. Why did we decide on a certain high amount value and a certain percentage, and you can see how many transactions they are flagged. Now, you have the ability to turn analytics on and off. So if you want to go ahead and say, you know what, duplicate entries don't apply to this general ledger, we could remove it. Or if you want to go ahead and apply advanced analytics, we have that also available in Analytics AI. So these are very powerful Python-based algorithms that really understand data analytics to a whole new level using machine learning and artificial intelligence. If you take a look at angle-based outlier analysis, cluster-based local outlier factor analysis, we have very powerful histogram-based outlier detection, isolation forest. There's various different, very powerful advanced analytic capabilities to take a look at unusual patterns in your data. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this information. You could see that, oh, you know what? Based on the clusters, we now have a lot more transactions to take a look at, but we're interested in the high risk amounts. And then we go down here and you can see exactly what they are. Now, everything that we do is all available to you through filters. You don't have to wait for the test to run and then try to identify what's going on. Everything is serviced through filters. So if I go ahead and say I want to take a look at a high risk for a specific date period, if I want to put seriality in here, you have the ability to do that. If you want to take a look at a specific test, you could go and say I want to just take a look at high risk in duplicate payments. Well, it found 5 of that was triggered, and we could go ahead and take a look at those transactions. And we could see there's some duplicate transactions here for us to take a look at. From there, you could go ahead and say, I want to download the summary report. I want to download the results, just say like these duplicates. I'm going to put that into my working papers, or I want to download all of the data. Let's go ahead and say you want to download the summary report. I already have that open for us, so I'll show you what that looks like. Essentially, it summarizes the information for you: who did it, when, what period, what transactions were used, what was the period, what was the breakdown by month. It also shows you a summary of all the tests, the scoring, what monetary value, how many transactions were affected there, what were the keywords. This is ideal to use in your planning stage for retained evidence of your analysis. You can simply just go ahead and add that to your working papers. Now, going back to the app itself, when you go ahead and say you want to go ahead and add this to your working papers, we're going to go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and download our reference copy. When we do that, essentially, we could go ahead and add this directly into your working, give it a document number, and give it all the information that we need to add it to your working papers. What does that zip file contain? I'll show you here. Let me just cancel that request, and I'll show you what that zip file contains. It's essentially a PDF of all the documents that's included in the app. So if you had the client query, if I double click on it, it's just going to open this up. You can see if they responded, you get to see all their responses. The analytical review is kept as a PDF. You could actually put that in there and take a look at the information if needed. Now, all of that is just added directly into your document manager. If you go ahead and say, put that as a document, you're more than welcome to drag and drop data as well. So you could drag and drop it from the cloud and bring that in as well. That's definitely a capability that we offer. That's essentially the synergy that we provide clients when they're looking at integrating analytics into their engagement. If you want to go ahead and do that, it's actually very simple. Here's a doc to view of CaseWare Cloud open, or Analytics AI open in the screen here. If I want to go ahead and drag, say, the queries and add that here, I could simply just drag and drop it, and it just adds it as a working papers item. As simple as that. So you could use the automated feature and download the full, or you could use bits and pieces of it and put them into your respective areas of your engagement. That's the type of integrated solution Caseware offers, is where we allow you to take your analysis and then integrate them with your methodology. And we respect in where you put the information, as we give you full control on where you want to provide that information into your engagement. Now, as we near the end of the presentation, I really like to thank everyone on the call today for giving your time and looking at this new way of approaching data analytics. It's a very unprecedented approach in terms of the analysis, where you no longer have to be a data scientist to be able to use data analytics into your audits. It's straightforward, it's simple to use, it offers a lot of capabilities, not only just doing the analysis, but you have the ability to do your prepared by client requests. You have the ability to include the completeness check to make sure things are reconciling properly. You have the ability to include a analytical review if it's not already included in the review itself, in the review engagement. You can actually see those insights in the analytics itself. You have the ability to apply your knowledge of the entity through influencers. You have the ability to take a look at your risk-based approach to your transactions to look for transactions that are the highest risk. So as opposed to looking through a million records and manually trying to figure out and doing a very basic sampling, random sampling to identify the transactions, we give you a more risk-based approach against the entire set of data. It's a very flexible and easy to use platform, and we invite you to go ahead and try that. If you're interested in learning more, it would be our pleasure to help you. You could definitely email us at info@caseware.com, and we'll go ahead and follow up on your request and look forward to working. Thank you again. We look forward to working with you in the future.